so let's talk about what we're going to talk about. The first thing we're going to talk about is what's up on planet Earth. Then we're going to talk about telling a new story about who you truly are. Then we're going to talk about activating your quantum creativity and why a new story is vital to activating who you truly are. Then I'm going to introduce you to a part of the quantum alignment system, and we're going to teach you how to use quantum questions as a way of activating a more authentic and aligned meaning of who you really are in the story that you're living. And then we're going to talk about activating your quantum human design. And my intention today is to get through types, centers, and lines, because I find that especially the lines tend to be hugely revelatory in terms of understanding yourself more deeply. We have a job to clean the template of what's possible on the planet right now. We have a job to be the fullest expression of who we really are, because it is us, individually and collectively, who carry within it the blueprint for the mutation that's happening on the planet. And we're going to start, as I always start in summer camp, with the story of the solar plexus mutation, which is a part of human design we don't talk about as much as I would like to see us talk about it. And frankly, the way in which we talk about it oftentimes is kind of doom and gloom. When Ra first presented the information about the solar plexus mutation, it's pretty creepy the way he describes it. In his visualization of what's to come, we're all sort of living in these, wall-bound camps with guns defending ourselves from raiders. It's sort of like a bad version of Mad Max. And while I would say that there are certainly the potential for those energies to manifest on the planet, I think, really frankly, if you open up your news page, you could see that that's kind of where we're at right now in some ways. That's not where we're headed. I really think that there's too much evidence to indicate otherwise. That if you look at the teachings of the Mayan energies, if you look at, even the predictions in the Bible, we're not headed towards end times that are apocalyptic. We're heading towards an end of this cycle that we're in, that is a highly polarized cycle, and moving towards a time when we will be living out a different quality and caliber of energy. But we're in the transition point, and I have to review this every year because I think it's good to remind ourselves about the blueprint of where we're going. So let's talk about what's up on planet Earth. I wanted to say too, but just as a really quick little asterisk point before we get going. For some of you, everything we talk about today will be brand new, because I have people on this call who just got their chart this week. For some of you who've been studying human design for a while, some of this may be familiar information. There will be information that I will share with you today that one part of it I've shared only one other time in the last 18 years. Other parts of it are totally brand new. Even if you think you've heard of this material before, and I'm telling you this from my own experience as a human design teacher, and most importantly, someone who also has a human design. I have a human design, and it works on me all the time. You can hear the most basic information 30 times, and the 31st time, you'll hear something you've never heard before that will transform the way you think about it. So really see this as a fun and exciting journey through information today, and don't go super academic on me on this, because this is summer camp. We're supposed to be having fun. and I want you to just let this information percolate over you like sunlight hitting a babbling brook. And let's just play with it and not take it super seriously. All right. Well, take it seriously, but play with it. Have fun with it. All right, so what's up on planet Earth? In 1642, Sir Isaac Newton, came up with a whole set of rules about how the physical world works. And we call this understanding all these rules that he came up with about gravity and light and how things move and thermodynamics. All of these rules that Newton came up with are the rules that we were traditionally taught in high school or college, even for some of us, about physics. Newtonian physics has ruled the consciousness of the planet for many, many years. Let me just assure you that in 1642, Sir Isaac Newton was not necessarily considered to be a genius. He was actually kind of a heretic. So just so that you know, he was also a mutant, most likely. But our understanding of the world, especially our understanding of the material world, has been primarily ruled by Newtonian physics for hundreds of years. This is the physics that we were taught. This is the physics that really has given us the idea that there are formulas in the world, formulas that ultimately can be applied to things like success and how to build things in factories and how to educate children. The idea of a formula or rules and regulations around materialness and the material world came from, at least have its roots in Newtonian physics. Now, everything that's manifested in the world is a result of collective consciousness. So when we emerged into this new understanding of the material world, this was an outpicturing or a manifestation of our collective consciousness. So the understanding that we had in the material world was where we were collectively as a result of our consciousness. Now, in 1787, I'm giving you the history of the planet in human design. In 1787, we had a mutation happen in the human design chart. In 1787, we went from being a seven-centered being, like we teach in traditional Hindu chakra systems, to becoming the nine-centered being that we are now in our human design. The heart chakra split into the will and the G center, and the solar plexus chakra, the third chakra, the yellow one, split into the emotional solar plexus and the spleen, the awareness centers. So already we've gone through a mutation. So when you start going, well, people don't mutate, we've already mutated as a species. And these splits in these centers actually kind of set us up for the next mutation that's happening. We're literally in the midst of a mutation. The human design hardwiring is changing. And because we're changing, we are experiencing a whole lot of different energies and kind of an overlapping between an old energy and a new energy as we emerge into 2027, where we will have another change in the hardwiring of humans. So, hallmarks of Newtonian consciousness include finite amounts in solution. Newtonian consciousness is very finite. Okay, you can neither move. Matter is very finite. There's very finite rules about how matter operates. There are fixed laws with probable, possible, and predictable results, formulas, reasoning, logic, nature, and natural law. And of course, as a result of this, a drive for certainty. If you're going to implement a formula, you got to know what the outcome's going to be, right? Well, we're evolving. And evolution is the imperative of consciousness. And maybe a little more deliberate than what we were taught in school. Most of us were taught, if not all of you were taught, Darwinian evolution. You guys remember that, right? Survival of the fittest. And then you guys remember this chart? We all saw this chart in high school, right? Well, some of you didn't, but there was this whole chain of being, man evolved from apes. I'm going to say that it's probably, in fact, scientists bear this out, it's probably a little bit more complicated than that, right? So, moving forward in time, the dawning of the quantum era. In the 1920s, we had a new understanding of physics. We started to see that, maybe the rules around matter are a little bit more complicated than we thought. And maybe that it isn't just that matter is made of atoms and atoms make molecules and it's like this little puzzle and this little formula. But in fact, maybe there's more going on than we realize. So the quantum physics emerged in 1920s, and coincidentally, I think not, we had at the same time an emergence of new philosophies and new ways of thinking called New Thought. We had Ernest Holmes, Edgar Cayce, Madame Blavatsky, Rudolf Steiner, Maria Montessori, just to name a few of these people who began to think about things outside of formulas. People who began to think about things like, I wonder if thoughts create your reality. What quantum science showed us is that we are all connected by virtue of a quantum field, that unified field theory, or the fact that we are ultimately all unified and one, creates a very different understanding of the true nature of what it means to be human. We also learned that as a result of our thoughts, that we create non-locally, that you can actually create things from your thought, and that's completely divorced from your labor. So you can create abundance, and you don't necessarily have to go work for it at a job, for example. We discovered a concept called fundamental creativity, which we're going to talk about a lot more today. And what we saw is that if we got ourselves away from the formula of material creativity, that in fact, the driving force of the human experience is not about money and material access, but in fact about tapping into well-being, and that well-being is actually the true root of creativity, and actually even the most important thing for us to find elegant solutions to the challenges facing the world. So with this emerging understanding of how the material world is actually made up, and these shifts in philosophies and consciousness, we also began a new cycle where we are learning to embrace change, uncertainty, and potential. So it leads us, as we go through this evolution, and we're kind of now beginning to step into this quantum era, to ask the question, the most important question, who are you and who are you really? So let's break this down into some really simple concepts first and build up from there. Light is the energy that powers us. In fact, when we look at human design, what we learn in human design is that the body graph is activated by the neutrino stream, which is actually stardust that comes from the sun. So sunlight is actually what powers us. Let's talk about what does that mean. All right. When we look at the components of the energy system of the world, the first thing that we are sort of floating in is what I like to call the cosmic soup. The cosmic soup, and I'm going to break this down for you sort of verbally, and then I'll actually put this into diagrams for those of you who have a more Newtonian perspective and you want logic and pictures to go with it. I'll show you the formula for how this works. But you come from the cosmic soup, which is basically the quantum field of infinite possibilities, or very simply put, a realm of non-manifest reality. So we are all, at some point in time in our existence, before we manifest into our physical bodies and live this life that you're living right now, our existence, we exist as an infinite possibility in a non-manifest reality, where we swim as crackers in the cosmic soup. Light realm, which is photons, is the way in which material things are constructed, or if you think about it this way, it's the energy through which material things manifest out of the quantum field. Photons are powerful forms of communication or connection between manifest and non-manifest reality. If you think about sacred texts, how many sacred texts do we have that say, first there was light, right? There's light because it's in lights or in photons, and that the programming for manifestation is encoded, and light actually transmits information that creates, and it creates ultimately the manifested reality. So from the quantum field, through a photon stream, you went from being cosmic soup to manifested reality. So everybody take a minute. I want you to sit back and close your eyes. I'm going to show you how this works. Close your eyes, and while you have your eyes closed, I want you to think of your mother. So as you think of your mother, the first thing I want you to think about is your mother actually living in your brain? I know it feels like it sometimes, but she's not. Okay? When I say think of your mother, you probably all had a variety of different kinds of experiences. Some of you might remember your mom's hugs, your mom's sweet words, your mom's cookies that she baked for you after school. Some of you may not have the same kinds of thoughts about a mother. Some of you may have more unpleasant things around the mother, the idea of a mother. But if you think about the idea of mother is just an archetype. If you take all of the emotions off of your idea of your mother and you just simply think of the idea of mother, it's just an archetype. It's a neutral archetype. It actually really doesn't mean anything other than someone who's given birth to someone or someone who's raising someone, right? But when I say the word mother to you and you think of your mother, first of all, what's happening is the minute I inspire you to have that thought, it creates a photon storm in the occipital lobe of your brain. That photon storm then stimulates your brain to create a set of specific neurotransmitters. Those neurotransmitters then travel through your body and actually trigger specific hormonal responses, measurable hormonal responses. We can actually draw your blood and measure your hormonal response to your thought. If we measure your brain, we can also even measure electrical impulses and even heart impulses based on this thought. This thought comes from or is initiated by photons, by light. So your brain takes light and then translates it, manifests that light into a measurable biochemical, a physical, material, tangible thing, creating an emotional response. So you have the capacity, by virtue of your thinking, to translate light into material, manifested experiences. So take a second and think about how flipping powerful you are. Now, let's talk for a minute about what determines what kind of biochemical response you have in response to the word mother. And by the way, you can have this, we could do a bunch of different archetypes. I could say, think of money. And you'd all probably have a whole variety of different responses to that, right? Or I could say, well, I won't say that. I'm not going to say that. Let's just think happy thoughts, all right? So photons are part of our creative medium, but we have to talk about what inspires the movement of the photons in the first place. So everything is changing. Okay, we are heralding the quantum human. Everything is changing. Let's talk about what's moving the photons and how are we going to change the way we move photons. This evolution we're in is not a typical evolution. It's not Darwinian. It's already in us. It's acting through us. It's not necessarily in response to our outer reality, so it's not natural selection. And it may ultimately be what ends up separating us from the animal world. It's already in you, and it's waiting to be activated. But the way in which you translate photons is going to determine how it gets activated. We are already living in the template, or what Dr. Rupert Sheldrake calls the morphogenetic field of the evolution of humanity in 2027. The blueprint for it is already in place. In fact, if you study the work of Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, he talks about, and actually has been on the leading edge of a concept called conscious evolution, where he actually has hypothesized that the whole natural selection thing is completely bogus to begin with, that in fact there's more deliberate qualities to evolution even in animals than perhaps we understand or have understood up until this point. We play a part in orchestrating the next phase in humanity. Our own consciousness, your own translation of the photons that are going through you right now is part of creating the new world. Consciousness doesn't need a physical form, But physical form needs consciousness, and consciousness enjoys physical form. By the way, I feel like every time I read this, I should highlight enjoys physical form, because we forget that sometimes, right? Because physical form is the leading edge of thought. It's fun to do this. So consciousness expands through physical form. Okay? Our life, your life from birth to death, is an expansion of consciousness. That's your job. And right now, in the programming of consciousness, we have a photon storm that we're translating into a brand new manifested reality. So let's talk about the mechanics of how we do this, and then we'll go back and talk about what's going on with the photons, and how do we take those photons and translate them into form. What does that mean, and how does that work? So in human design, evolution has 4 stages. And when I say it has 4 stages, I'm saying that we're already in the overlay of these stages. It's not like everybody's going to wake up in 2027 and go, boom, dang, I've evolved. Woo! Okay. We are in a cycle of ending one part of being human, or one stage of being human, moving into another. And there's an overlap. But we've been in this phase of this overlap phase, more solidly since 1978, but, over the last 100 years. It's a gradual process. So as I go through these phases, you might go, wow, well, that's already been happening. And yeah, that's probably true. We're all at various points in this overlap right now. So in stage 1, we see the channel 3955, which is really the most alchemical channel in the chart. And by the way, it doesn't matter if you have this defined or open in your chart. We all have all of the chart. Okay? We all have all of the chart. Some of you have it open, which means you have variability in how you experience the energy. Some of you have it defined, but that just simply means that we all have it. We just experience it in different ways. So nobody doesn't have the 3955. Okay? So in the first phase, the driving force in this energy, which is the channel of abundance, this is abundance here. This is the provocation in the 39 to bring things into alignment with the frequency of energy of abundance in the 55. The 55 becomes the new driving force of the new human chart. All of the energy in the chart starts with the 55. The 55 is called abundance. And it is the frequency, the emotional frequency of abundance that drives the entire chart, which means our creative capacity moves from the limitations of our mind, which we've been trying to use to create for a long time, and now moves to our vibrational alignment or our emotional alignment with the understanding that spirit, God, the universe, the quantum field, whatever you want to call it, is source. And that when we trust in the sufficiency of source, meaning when we trust or we have faith that we have everything that we need, the more emotionally, vibrationally aligned with that understanding, the more faith we have, the more that energy manifests in the world. In other words, we are moving away from our financial support, our food, our safety, our everything, our physical support is no longer going to be tied to our work per se. Projectors, you can all start rejoicing now. And instead will be tied to our consciousness and the fulfillment or the connection with our awareness of consciousness as the creative power. Make sense so far? And as you see, when we go back to the New Thought movement of the 1920s, and actually it kind of started in the late 1800s, the whole idea that my thoughts create my reality, that's the 55. Because your thoughts, the photon storm that creates, your thoughts, then trigger a neurotransmitter that then creates a hormonal response that creates an emotional response that ultimately, what you'll learn later on today, stimulates your heart center, and the magnetic resonance field of your heart, and then attracts into your reality things that are in alignment with the vibration that you're offering. Some of you may know this as the law of attraction. There's actually a mechanical explanation for the law of attraction in the human design chart. So in this first stage, we begin to see the change of the nature of how we bond and mate. This begins to change the nature of how we create and share resources with our family. We begin to be rooted in alchemy and abundance in spirit. It stabilizes the emotional energy that's on the planet right now, and the end of what we call binary consciousness. When you are sufficient, or when you are trusting in your supply, it's not abundance and lack. It's just variations on the theme of abundance. There is no have and have not, black, white, left, right, politically speaking, even masculine, feminine. Polarized consciousness or binary consciousness is changing. And so we start to operate from a field of potential possibilities and not from a place of this or that. I'll just let you guys read that for a second. John Randolph Price wrote this little tiny book called The Abundance Book. I think it's like $6 on Amazon. If you want to master your Gate 55 challenges, this is an outstanding book. He has a 40-day plan for aligning your consciousness with sufficiency. It's really beautiful. Honestly, this book saved my life. I've probably given away 30 copies of it in the course of my life. In the second stage of consciousness, we see a change of flow in the energy in the channel 59.6. This is the channel of reproduction and mating. So we begin to see that the way in which we create families, the way in which we come together and define what is a family, even the energy around sex and sexuality, as well as the energy around peace and war change. So we see the death of desire. And it doesn't mean you don't create things, but you don't create things from that desperate place of lack that desire sometimes creates. We see specifically a shift in the way in which we reproduce and a shift in the way in which we do war. So let's think about this again, just looking at the history of humanity. Number one, reproduction is becoming a very interesting topic in science. First of all, we have, ways in which we can engineer reproduction. We have, you can create a baby in a test tube now, right? And they are looking at, I just read actually kind of what to me is sort of a horrifying article a couple weeks ago about scientists are now looking at sort of creating an artificial womb that looks kind of like a fish tank that you can grow a baby in, which I find horrifying personally. But that's my own stuff. But we have a huge scientific change in the last, 40 years in the science of reproduction. Not only that, we also have really beginning what I think alarming indications that the nature of how we reproduce may have to change. Scientists are baffled because the sperm count in men in the Western world is going down dramatically, and they don't know why. Infertility is becoming an increasingly big problem on the planet. So the whole theme of reproduction is up. It's just up. I won't say what's going on, but it's up. Not only that, we also have brand new ideas about what does it mean to be a family. Think about, what is a family anymore? It can be 2 men, 2 women, a man and a woman. It can be, 2 separate households. There's so many definitions of what is a family anymore. I mean, it's pretty interesting. Let's talk about war. When we used to go to war, we used to pick up our axe and our hammer and, swing out and do hand-to-hand combat with someone. It was kind of a personal experience, certainly an intimate experience. Now you can sit in Washington and push a button, right? The nature of war has changed dramatically. With the change and shift in this energy, with the expansion of the definition of what is possible in the name of love, we see the possibility now for us to enter into an era of sustainable peace. And we see an end of learning from a place of contrast. We begin to create for the sake of pure creativity, what would happen if, rather than, oh, this hurts, I don't want to do this anymore. Stage 3, we see a shift in the change in the way the energy works here in the 4037. The 4037 is the channel of community. It's also the channel of agreements. It's actually called the channel of the marriage agreement or the marriage bargain. It's part of the agreements that we make between each other. And it's also the energy for providing resources sufficiently for large groups of people. This is an energy that's about feeding people. It's about having the resources and the agreements we make around resources so that everyone has enough. So what does this mean? It means we see or we cement the change in the nature of all of our agreements, especially our long-term bonds, and it creates collective infrastructure to reflect these changes. So one of the examples that I think is really beautiful is it is now legal in America, and I think in Britain as well, and other places, to get married if you are gay, which is a legalized, it's an agreement, right? A legalized change in the infrastructure that reflects the changing nature of what's happening in society. And it creates for us new frontiers in how we create community. The idea or the definition of community is up for change. And the truth is, we have an option in looking at how we interpret the mutation. We can either see it as communities unifying behind a wall, defending themselves, or if you really understand the nature of global warming and what's possible on this planet, the only way we're going to be able to save ourselves is to also save each other. We're all under the same sun, and there's no way around that. We're all going to have to figure out how to make this work. So what does this mean? Business is now rooted in abundance and rooted in abundance in spirit. Does it feel right? Does the business that you're doing feel right with the corresponding creation of the collective infrastructure? We begin to make agreements and bargains and create laws because they are right, because it's the right thing to do, not necessarily because there's an exchange of value. And we move now into a tribal consciousness that is not about ego, it's about we versus me. Because we're all in this together. In stage 4, we see actually a breaking apart of this channel. This channel splits. This channel is the channel that binds us to mammals. It's actually part of the reasons why up until now we needed to eat meat. Humans needed to eat meat to stay grounded. It was an important way for them to integrate their energy onto the earthly plane. So physiologically, we needed to eat meat, but with the breaking apart of this channel, we see, first of all, a final delineation of humankind out of the animal kingdom. Our hardwiring changes so that we are no longer familiar enough with the mammalian energy chart that we're now not going to be mammals anymore by design. I'm not saying we won't have some of the elements of being a mammal, but the way in which we connect energetically with the animal kingdom changes. Which means, not only that, this is also called the channel of love and marriage. So again, it changes the entire definition of courtship and marriage. And also, which in a way, if you look at the history of this, these two are tied. Marriage was traditionally a business arrangement. You got married or you were married off because it was a way of binding tribes together to ensure that there would be enough resources and defense between the tribes. So you would get married and your new family would, and your father would receive 20 goats in exchange for you, and then your families would be tied together, and then you would you would fight together if you had to defend your tribes together. Okay, so marriage was a very, very much intricately related to food and defense. So when this channel splits, it actually completely changes our definition of courtship and marriage, and of course it also changes the way in which we eat. which also further changes the economy and our energy system. See, doesn't this look yum? We have the potential now and actually the design to become vegetarian or vegan. And in fact, if you look at what's happening with global warming, it's one of the things that actually dramatically impacts the way in which we use the resources on the planet. Other changes that will happen as a result of the mutation, we will see the end of logic as we know it. It doesn't mean it won't have a place. It's one of the three ways of knowing for humans, but it will not be the same as it is now. We see the end of fear-based instinct, the grip that fear has on us. And in fact, fear has such an interesting grip on us right now, I think, because we're in this overlay. Because the new nature of the human experience is about going towards what feels right. And because of the complex hardwiring between the spleen and instinct in humans and consciousness, it's kind of messed up right now, which is why I think we have such a high incidence of anxiety disorders and fear as being an interesting adventure called that. Intuitive knowing driven by love and a drive towards well-being for all becomes the ruling energy of the day. And you all know this because you're already living it. We shift from an energy of lack, which is still prevalent on the planet, to abundance. We see a new era of truly conscious connections. We see the emergence of an economy rooted in love and integrity. We do business that feels right, and it doesn't just feel right, it actually takes care of people. We will see changes in education and government. When the idea that there is no system anymore falls by the wayside, we can't use a system of education and government the way that we do now. So I don't know for sure what's going to replace it. I think we're in a very powerful, important creative cycle. But a formula to raise a child or a formula to take care of people isn't going to work anymore. You can't create formulas when when everything is potential. We will see the evolution of a better democracy. Democracy in the chart is actually the highest expression of how humans come together and organize themselves in an empowered way. I don't know if anybody's really doing it right yet, except there's this interesting community in India. We will see amplified creative capacity. Our ability to create will go up because we're no longer living in a world of possible and impossible, which is the side effects of logic. The impossible can become possible. And I just want to plunk this into your thoughts because I know I say this a lot, but it's really important to be aware. We kind of think about people going to the moon and, I was born in 1965. It's like, okay, people go to the moon, no big deal. People go in the space shuttle, no big deal. Yep, there's, space stations zooming around us all the time, no big deal. You have to remember that there was once on this planet some human being that said, hey, I think we should go to the moon. And we all said, that's nuts. You can't do that, right? And then we did it. So the idea of the fact that we could all live in sustainable peace and have resources for everyone, and everyone could be safe and well educated and loved and taken care of. The idea of that being, okay, maybe seemingly impossible in this moment today, but the idea that that's a possibility, I would say the mutation supports this idea. And I would say the drive and the desire that each and every one of you has in your hearts to see that as a reality supports the possibility of the manifestation of this idea. What we are standing on is the edge of a promise for a better world. an era of sustainable peace. This is the Hopi prophecy, one of the many, many, many ancient peoples that predicted this time. The Hopi prophecy says, when the earth is ravaged and the animals are dying, a new tribe of people shall come unto the earth from many colors, creeds, and classes, and who by their actions and deeds shall make the earth green again. They shall be known as the warriors of the rainbow. That's you guys and your children and your children's children. We're here. What can we do to usher in this new era to continue with the activation of mutation? Number one, visualize. Trust yourself. Follow your intuition. Do what feels right. Don't always rely on logic as the only way of knowing, especially if your gut is screaming at you. And redefine the story of who you think you are. And I put the word truth here because I want you to tell the truth to yourself and to the world about who you really are. And that's really what we're going to be working on for the rest of the day. Redefining the story of who you are so you can tell the truth. And here's the thing that's so important. If you have a tapestry, if you look at a tapestry, it's comprised of threads of all kinds of colors and even different textures in some tapestries. If you have a thread that is pulled or missing, it messes up the whole tapestry. We as a human collective are just like a tapestry. We are a gathering of multicolored, multi-textured souls. Each one of us a beautiful part of the tapestry, a string in the tapestry. If you are not holding your place in the tapestry, it affects the entire picture that's on the front of the beautiful tapestry. We are only as beautiful as the sum total of all the threads. And your presence, your essence, your existence is an important contribution to the totality of who we are. And you chose to be here at this time because you serve a vital part in the unfolding of the cosmic plan. That is truth. And if you ever forget the intimate and powerful truth of the vitality and the preciousness of who you are, go back to remembering that you have this place in the tapestry. We are all who we are because of you. And I know I say this over and over again. If I could get you all to, that's the only thing you walk away with today is remembering, oh yeah, I'm part of something greater than myself by myself. And that whatever that thing that I am a part of, this collective human experience that I am a part of, it is what it is because I'm a part of it. And if I'm not a part of it, it's not the same. You are all an important part of this. So if we're going to talk about the truth of who we are, we have to go back to looking at the mechanics of who we are and really get to the heart of what does it mean to be human and redefine or maybe remember the story of our human selves. And that story of what's possible for us is actually rooted in the G center, literally the heart of who we are. Remember, the G and the will are part of the heart chakra. This is part of the heart of who we are. The G center is the center for love and it's the center for direction. The degree to which we experience the energies that are defined in the G center influence our direction. The quantity and the quality of the love that we have for ourselves influences the direction your life takes. In the highest expression of humanity, we are designed to love ourselves. We are designed to be powerful and to have a voice, an empowered voice over our own life path and direction. We are designed to make a unique contribution to the world, but here's the caveat. Write this down and file it away, please. The energy for making a unique contribution to the world is not attached to the sacral, which is an energy for doing. It's attached to the G center, which is an energy for being. You are the unique contribution to the world. It's not what you do. Sometimes when we talk about life purpose, We get so caught up into thinking, well, what should I be doing? People ask me that all the time. Well, what should I be doing? How should I be living my life purpose? Be yourself. The rest of it falls into place when you do that. We are designed to experience life, to use it as part of the creative storyboard of our existence, but we're also designed to wake up every morning and redefine who we are. We're not designed to be stuck in the past, in the pain of the past. We are designed to forgive, to find the blessings, and to move forward. We are defined to take our direction in life from our connection with spirit. We are ultimately deeply spiritual beings by design, and we are designed ultimately to surrender to spirit or the cosmic plan, if you want to call it that, as part of our life path. We are designed to be vital and physically, I'm going to use the word vital and not necessarily healthy, because sometimes we have individual adventures on the journey of health and vitality and embodiment. And I don't ever want to fall into the trap of saying, oh, you created this illness and you created that illness. We are designed to be fully embodied in the vital physicality of the human experience. We are designed, this is also super important, write this down too. You are designed to receive by virtue of your being, not by virtue of you doing. We are designed to receive everything that we need to fulfill our life purpose. Because you exist, not because of the work that you do. We are designed ultimately to make choices in life and to take our direction in life in harmony and in accordance with our contribution to our fellow man, meaning we are not designed to hurt each other. We are not designed to take advantage of each other. We're actually designed to serve the world in fellowship with each other. And our existence and the high expression of who we are by nature, when you're on your path, when you are aligned with who you are, the energy that you emit benefits others. It doesn't even necessarily mean you have to go out and start a nonprofit or go build houses with Habitat for Humanity, although I do think that, places of service are great and awesome for those of you who are called to do so. What this means is that when you are in the fullest expression of the truth of who you are, by virtue of the authentic alignment of yourself, you contribute to others. You contribute to others simply by walking through the grocery store buying toilet paper, because it's the frequency of alignment that you transmit that benefits others. The light of who you are and the joy that comes from living aligned with your authentic self contributes to others. So don't get caught up in this whole idea of, well, what do I have to do to live my life purpose? It's who you have to be in your purpose. And you're already in your purpose. Even if you think you're not, even if you think you're lost, even if you think you can't find it, it's a journey. And it's a journey that sometimes you don't get to have the epiphany till you're 75. And it doesn't mean everything you did up until 75 was screwing up. It means everything you did on the way to get to 75 was an important part of the journey. So be gentle with yourselves and remember forgiveness. Forgive yourself. All right, let's go back to photons now and activating your quantum creativity. Let's review. Quantum field is the unmanifest reality. The mental and the emotional bodies, these are part of the layers that photons filter through to manifest your manifested world, is where you carry your conditioning. So you have in your energy field mental and emotional energy that carries the history of who you are, who you've been, the history of your genetic lineage, the history of your life experiences, your thoughts, your beliefs, your emotions, and all of those energies, as I'll show you in a minute, influence what photons you're translating into physical form. You have around your body what we call a subtle body. This is an energy template for what you are creating in your life. So we have thoughts and ideas, experiences, desires. Abraham Hicks calls this vibrational escrow. You are carrying with you an energy template. When you go see the acupuncturist, this is what your acupuncturist is working with. If you use homeopathy, this is what it's working on. If you use flower essences or essential oils, this is what part of your energy field you are dealing with. If you do quantum touch or healing touch, this is what's being worked on. Your energy template is being aligned. If something's in your energy template, you can change it and shift it before it actually manifests if it's there and something you don't want. And then you have your manifested reality, your life right now. Let's look at this from a different perspective. Keeping it simple here. There's a quantum field of infinite possibilities, and then there's your life right now. You see that thin blue line in the middle? That's like a coffee filter. And in that coffee filter, you have all your life experiences, all your emotional experiences, your genetic lineage, your human design. All of these factors influence how you interact with the quantum field of infinite possibilities. It's the filter through which you pull infinite possibilities into your very finite reality right now. Another way to look at it might be this. You have your physical reality, your subtle body, your mental and emotional body, and then the quantum field. Physical is the manifestation, the vital is the blueprint, the mental and the emotional is your conditioning field. The supramental, sometimes called supramental, is the non-manifest reality or the quantum field. So let's go back to our question, redefining the story of who you are. Who are you? Who are you really? You are this space, not the form. Your form is temporary. You're bigger than your form. You're the space, and the space is consciousness. Consciousness is the rocket fuel, so to speak. Your consciousness is the mediator through which you control the photons and translate the photons out of the quantum field into your manifest reality. Quantum physics shows us when you look at quantum particles, which are the particles that create matter, you can only measure the movement of a particle, a quantum particle, or the location of a quantum particle, not both at the same time. So something is either moving, and we can note the movement of it, we can note the speed of it, we can see where it's moving, but the minute we measure where it is, the location of it, we can no longer measure the movement. When a quantum particle moves from moving potential into manifestation or location, when it moves from moving to being located in a specific place, we call that manifestation. Meaning, the meaning we give things is what determines what is made manifest. So let's go back to the idea of think of your mother. What determined which neurotransmitters your body created in response to the photon storm that was stimulated by the archetype mother in your brain was the meaning you gave the word mother. So your meaning, the meanings we give things are determined by the conditioning field, meaning the meaning you give things, archetypes, and your chart is nothing but a Rolodex of archetypes. Your human design chart is just a collection of archetypes. The meaning you give those archetypes is based on your specific human design, your life experiences, your genetics, your past lives, your soul's intention, the history your soul brings forth into this lifetime. And if you want to create something different in your reality, if you want to have a different kind of life, you have to start giving different meanings to things. You have to ascribe to a meaning that is in alignment with what you really want. So, for example, let's shift from mother to money. Okay? Let's say you want more money in your life, and some of you might want that. If you want to create more money in your reality, if you want to collapse out of the quantum field a different experience of the archetype of money, you have to create a different set of meanings about money. So if you have a belief right now in your mental and emotional body that money is capricious and money comes and goes, and money, the minute I get money, I spend it. I've never had money before in my life, and I'm scared of money because if I ever really do get a lot of money, I don't even know what to do with it in the first place. If these are the meanings you have around money, then when you collapse or pull out of the quantum field the experience of money or the archetype of money, these are the energy frequencies you're going to bring with it. These are the meanings that you have that determine how you translate the photon storm or the photon stream, maybe a storm for some of you around money. That's a good one. Go outside and stand in the torrential downpour photon storm of money. Just let it drench you soaking wet, right? The meaning you give the archetype money is going to influence what photons you use and how you use them to create a specific response and ultimately a specific vibrational alignment with the archetype that matches the meaning. So in other words, what that means is that our perception of the world determines what we create. And we are happiest and most abundant and ultimately magical in our current awareness when we are creating an alignment with our energy blueprint, human design, our soul purpose, and our life purpose. To change your reality and to activate your quantum creativity, you have to change the meaning that you give to the things in your life that are not working. There are two kinds of creativity: situational creativity and fundamental creativity. The less reactive, i.e. the less conditioned we are, the more we can move away from being situationally creative to being what we call fundamentally creative. This is where real creativity happens. So when you say, I create my own reality, we have to know who is the I and how do we change the meaning that we give the I, right? So situational creativity is in the moment, it's reactive, it's determined by your conditioning, it's a short-term solution, it's finite, it comes from the conditioned mind, it's the result of thinking and reasoning from the mind, and it's quote-unquote reasonable. This is what my daughter looks like when you take her to an art museum. This is about one room short of her bouncing off the walls and the security kicking us out, right? So this is fundamental creativity, which is where we really want to be, is transcends conditioning. It oftentimes comes in the epiphany. It's the aha, right? Oh, it's that instant awareness of an elegant solution. It has an infinite source. So it takes the archetypes and it goes beyond what we believe is possible for archetypes. It's imaginative and possibility oriented. It aligns with cosmic order, and it is by nature unreasonable, meaning it's not something you came out of that is a result of you squeezing your mind and trying to create a solution. So how do we activate our quantum creativity, or how do we access fundamental creativity? Number one, you have to decondition. So let's talk about what is conditioning. All of this stuff, the vital, the mental, and the emotional body, contains the conditioning field. It's everything that's happened to you, everything that people have said to you, all of your experiences that have created the meanings that you're drawing from right now in your creative capacity. There are 5 kinds of conditioning: openness by center, imprinting, generational energy patterns, genetics, and your design crystal. The first kind of conditioning, openness by center, comes from anything, it's not even by center, anything in your chart that's white. Any place in your chart that's white is where you receive energy and information from the world around you. Wherever you have white in your chart, there's a tendency for you to take energy in, amplify it, and mistakenly confuse other people's energies with your own. And that identifying with energy that does not belong to you, this may be addressing your question more specifically, Zoe. Any place where you take in energy that does not belong to you and you identify with it, it's influencing the meaning you give your world. Imprinting, the second kind of conditioning, comes from your family of origin. Your parents' behavior, and this goes beyond human design, okay? This is just basic physiology and development. Your parents' energy and your parents' actions and your parents' behavior, and in particular, your parents' type and centers, are going to create certain behavioral patterns. The way your parents behave, the way your family behaves, imprints you. You learn from your parents and what they do, and it will influence how you're conditioned. Number 3, generational energy patterns. You inherit your energy design from your grandparents. Your children inherit their design from your parents. So you can see there's sort of a perfect configuration here for generational energy patterns. You can have behavioral, or you can have energy patterns that repeat every other generation. So your parents dealing with you, they have to deal with energy patterns that are similar to their parents. So they get to relive their family energy from a different perspective. You give birth to children, and those children carry energy patterns similar to your parents, and now you have to deal with your parents' energy in your kids and the different dynamic and different energy perspectives. So take that and think about it. Number 4, part of what influences your conditioning is your genetics. Like it or not, some of your human adventure traits are genetic. And what we see in the emerging science of epigenetics is that there are protein regulators located on the genes that will influence how your genes react. And how those genes react influence oftentimes your perception of yourself and your life experiences. And those protein codes, the epigenes, are actually oftentimes stemming in origin from events and experiences that happened multiple generations before your birth. So you actually carry on a genetic level information and programming from things that happened to your family generations before. So if your family came from the Great Depression, or if your family came from a line of Holocaust survivors, or if your family was in some way traumatized generations before you were born, you may be feeling the after effects of some of that. And then, last but not least, at the moment of your conception, and in human design, that's actually 8 hours before your parents have sex. You're conceived 8 hours before. Your father's energy calls forth out of the earth an energy crystal called the design crystal. That design crystal then begins or orchestrates the manifestation of your physical form and your development. It also contains within it the story of your life, the story of who you are in this incarnation. This design crystal contains the morphogenetic field of your body and your life path. That design crystal, when you're done with it, goes back into the earth. It also carries with it the most leading edge level of consciousness on the planet at the moment of your conception. So if you think your kids are more advanced than you, yes, they are, because their design crystals were called forth out of the earth after yours. And as the earth grows and evolves, the next generation carries within their design crystals the energy of the current collective consciousness at the moment of their conception. That design crystal has had many lifetimes potentially on this planet. So it carries within it a history of its own experiences. So it's like you put on this suit, your human suit, and sometimes we get our human suits at the resale shop. And it has with it a history of having been worn before by other people. And that carries with it sometimes even memories of what happened to it before, too. So that also influences sometimes your conditioning. So the second thing you can do to stay fundamentally creative is to know yourself, which is what we're working on. Number 3, stay connected to beauty, well-being, truth, love, and other archetypes that are more aligned with creativity. These energies also raise your vibration and your ability to take quantum leaps across your conditioning. It seems counterintuitive because I think we're so trained to come from our mind that we think we have to think our way through our creative expression. But the truth is, and actually research bears this out, if you want to be more creative, play. Go for a walk on the ocean. Not on the ocean, but on the beach. You can go walk on the ocean too. That's pretty creative. Go look at beautiful things. Stay engaged with archetypes that are creative because those will inspire in you your own creativity. If you are stuck in the denseness and the heaviness of an experience and it's keeping you locked in a state of adrenaline-induced panic or fear or low-grade anxiety, it actually messes up your capacity to access fundamental creativity and stay in tune with the cosmic plan. And then last but certainly not least, trust yourself. The mind is technically logical. It actually isn't. Only 1/3 of us have logical minds. The rest of us just have crazy minds. And even the logical mind is usually filled with self-doubt. Trust yourself and your own intuition. If it doesn't feel right, if it doesn't smell right, especially right now, if it doesn't feel right and it doesn't smell right and it just feels wrong in every way, and your brain goes, oh, but this makes so much sense, tell your brain to shut up and follow your gut, okay? Find what's true for you, okay? Let's talk about holding instead of healing. So I am going to show you a technique to help you decondition and to help you create a different set of meanings and a different set of experiences out of the quantum field. This is part of a technique known as the quantum alignment system. This is an easy thing that you can do for yourself anytime, any place, anywhere. So let's talk a little bit about what knocks us off track. If our essence is about loving yourself, being empowered, being authentic, moving from the past and not letting the past define us and using the past as a point of growth and expansion and not limiting stories. If we are designed to be connected to source and deeply spiritual beings, if we're designed to be vital and supported and contributing, what keeps us from fully tapping into the experience of that potential in our daily life? It's hard to be human. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what makes this human experience so hard. And in particular, we're going to talk about the human experience in the context of the pineal gland. We are physiologically and energetically designed to be in constant contact with non-physical, source-based support. We are designed to have access to information that aligns us with the divine order of things, the cosmic plan, everything we need to know to fully manifest the full expression of who we are. But when we incarnate and we grow in this body and experience this earthly plane, things happen to us, and we have not just physical experiences, meaning our human lives, but we also have physical things that happen to our bodies that oftentimes make it more complicated and more challenging for us to stay connected and for us to have access to the full body of information and creativity available to us as humans. And one of the biggest adventures that we have in our physical form is that our pineal glands, for the most part, are not functioning properly. The pineal gland is a very, very important gland. It's a tiny gland that's located in the old part of the brain that's responsible for secreting melatonin. It's responsible for your circadian rhythms. It's responsible for sleep and responsible for your sense of time. It really truly is the gland that anchors us into the time-space continuum and into the experience of being physically manifested in the earthly plane. When we look at the energetic location of the pineal gland in the chart, it is located, or it is energetically ruled by the archetypes in the 64, the 61, and the 63, or the gate 64, 61, and 63. So energetically, the energy for the pineal gland is rooted in these three gates. Now notice that this is the part that connects the head, or the crown center, and the ajna. So this is the gland that literally connects the head center and the ajna center. The design crystal that we talked about earlier, the design crystal, which is the energetic part of your life story, it's the database, the energetic database that contains the story of who you are in this incarnation. When you are done growing and maturing and you are born, that design crystal is residing in the ajna center. Okay, your design crystal resides in your ajna center. At the moment of your birth, a second crystal called the personality crystal enters into your body and takes up residency in your head center. The personality crystal contains your soul design, or the intentions that your soul has when it chooses this lifetime and what it intends to accomplish when it's incarnated in this lifetime. So the design of your soul is contained in the personality crystal, which resides in the head center. So these two components of who you perceive yourself to be, remember we are focusing on the question, who are you? Who are you really? And who is the I that's creating your reality? Your I is comprised of the story of your soul and the story of your life. The story of your soul is encoded in the black parts of your chart, or the conscious design of your chart. The story of your life path, and your life story is encoded in the red elements in your chart, or the unconscious design. The place where those two parts of your personality, or who you are in this lifetime, meet up and connect and communicate with each other, the control center, if you will, for the interface between your soul and your life, is the pineal gland. The pineal gland is the gateway between your perceived reality and infinity. It is the third eye. And as I said, it anchors us in the time-space continuum. Postmortem studies, or cadaver studies, show that 88% of people on the planet have calcified or non-functioning or not optimally functioning pineal glands. That's a lot of us. The pineal glands physiologically get gummed up or calcified from many, many sources, most importantly from, well, there's a lot of things, but most importantly in the Western world, from fluoridated water. Fluoride actually calcifies the pineal gland. There's actually a lot of data to support this. This is not something I'm making up. Our lack of exposure to natural sunlight, and in particular to the cycles and the rhythms of the day, sunrise and sunset, and our capacity to maintain artificial lighting and stay up way beyond sunset or get up before sunrise, some of us, causes our pineal glands to malfunction. Lack of a spiritual practice can actually cause the pineal gland to shut down and not function optimally. Negative thoughts and negative thinking can actually affect the function of the pineal gland. The bottom line is, if you want to deepen your capacity to create and actually increase your capacity to experience life from a more authentic place, one of the things that will benefit you tremendously is to actively engage in processes that help you to clear, and when I say clear in this sense, I'm saying decalcify your pineal gland. Some supplements I've listed here that you can take: melatonin. Do some research on this, by the way. Don't just take my word for it. Find out what works for you. But melatonin, boron or borax found in beets, oregano oil, neem extract, raw cacao, chlorophyll-rich superfoods. At My Whole Foods now, you can buy frozen blue-green algae in the freezer section. Raw apple cider vinegar, iodine. Be really mindful. Don't take iodine without doing careful research, maybe under the guidance of someone. And organic blue ice, skatefish oil, and activator X, which is vitamin K1 and K2. But why is it important? Let's talk about the mechanics of why it's important. And why is it important to fundamental creativity? Because this is huge. Traditionally, in human design, when we teach the mechanics of the chart, I was taught and I was trained that the throat is the most important part of the chart, that everything in the chart flows to the throat, and that it's the throat center that determines everything about how you create, how you manifest your type. And that's true. The hardwiring of your throat center influences and tells us a lot about your chart. But the idea that everything flows through the throat and is manifested through speaking and language really skips a huge, huge step and is a very human-centric way of looking at the chart and discounts a big part of how we actually interface with the bigger plan. This is what's called a torus pattern. When scientists measure the magnetic resonance field of the universe, it looks like this. When scientists measure the magnetic resonance field of the world, the planet, it looks like this. When scientists measure the magnetic resonance field of your biological heart, your heart has a magnetic field. It looks like this. It's a pattern of magnetic, attractive energy. And you have contained within you an attractive magnetic force field that stems from the flow of your heart. I want to say that in the way in which I teach human design, when we talk about the creative nature and the quantum potential of us to create in a fundamentally creative way as humans, we have to not take a human-centric perspective and talk about, I speak it into form, voila, and talk about how do we instead interface with the quantum field and the earthly plane, heaven and earth, and how do we leverage our creative capacities sandwiched between heaven and earth in a way that allows us to tap into our quantum creative potential and still also live a fully expressed, a fully manifested, a fully experienced human life. Because if you're not fully here and fully being human, what exactly is the point of being here, right? So let's break this down a little bit more. If we're serving on the leading edge of consciousness, then we're not just experiencing the leading edge, you're not just thinking about it. It's not just sitting and meditating about it. You're actually creating it on the leading edge. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any growth. One point that I want you to think about is our feedback to what we experience on the earthly plane causes expansion in consciousness. We're on the leading edge. We're manifested in physicality on that leading edge. It's our feedback to what we're creating that causes expansion. When we look at the gates, 63, 61, and 64, the three gates of the head, the three gates of the pineal gland, all three of these gates involve asking questions. Okay, inspiration comes in, the way we teach design traditionally, inspiration comes in, And if we look at the mechanics of how we get inspired, we don't get inspired by getting data in our heads. This is the mechanics of it. You may experience it differently. We'll talk about that in a minute. But we get inspired by questions. Okay? The question of the 63 is, can you prove it? It's the initiating sequence and logic, right? Can you prove it? The gate 61 wants to know why. Why is this work? Why is this happening? Why is this a thing, right? The 64 wants to know, how am I going to do this? How do I make this happen? If we think of the creative process as coming down through the head and then out through the throat, what it really means is that we are creating from a place of confusion. There are no answers in the head and the ajna, by the way. If you look at the gates in the head and the ajna, it's just sheer crazy making up there. Okay? We go back to our Toretto pattern. There's a flow of in and out, response and reaction and recalibration and recreation. We are in a feedback loop. And in fact, if you look at every single one of the human design types, we are all, according to our own type, operating within that feedback loop. The manifestors are waiting for that inner correct timing and alignment with the flow of the creative process of the earthly energy. The generators are very clearly responding to anything and everything that's showing up in your outer reality. The projectors are waiting and getting invitations, right? Something that's showing up from your outer reality, something that technically you're responding to. I'm not going to use, not using the word responding, not in the human design way. And the reflectors, they're waiting out that whole cycle of the moon. They're in alignment with, they're kind of not entirely earthly, but they're reflecting through this energy of the moon their entire human experience of what's happening on the planet. We are all deeply entrenched in our own unique way in this feedback loop. In the feedback loop, we are designed to follow the things that feel satisfying. There is no suffering and self-denial in the chart. In fact, there's joy in the chart and sufficiency. We are designed to, when things show up in our outer reality, to follow the things that feel good. And we are designed to, when things show up in your outer reality that you don't like, to not follow them, in theory. Here's where the creative process kind of goes wrong. We are trained even in our new thought stuff, right? In our 1920s new thought stuff, we are trained to use intentions as our creative power, right? I now live in a multi-million-dollar mansion. I now have giant elves who carry around my 5,000 carat engagement ring. I now drive, 500 Teslas of various colors in my front, parked in my front yard. This idea of affirmations is mechanically incorrect. And if you understand that 7/8 of us have open heads and ajnas, meaning 7/8 of us are getting inspiration and ideas from who knows where, let's be real, and then we're trying to craft an affirmation around it. And then how many times have you written affirmations and it hasn't worked? Anybody? Okay. And maybe, mechanically that's not the right way to do it. And secondly, is that really your affirmation or somebody else's affirmation that you picked up when you were at a restaurant somewhere, right? The truth is, when you look at the mechanics of how we are designed to interface with the quantum field or God or the universe or whatever you want to call it, the place where our soul comes from, we are designed to interface through questioning, not telling. You don't tell the quantum field what you want. You question it. You throw out a question and then you wait and see what it throws back at you. Because the truth is, the human brain is kind of small. By nature, it has to be kind of small. You can only process about 200 bits of information per minute. If you process more than that, your brain will become overwhelmed and you go crazy. if you're creating from that tiny brain, you're really plucking out of the quantum field an incredibly limited number of options. Not only that, the options that you're plucking out of the quantum field are going to be heavily influenced by your conditioning and your belief in what you think is possible, which, if you went to the American public school system, means you probably think that everything is impossible because that's how we're trained, right? But if instead you say, what would happen if I had this kind of experience? What would it be like to have this? What do I need to do to have that? And you wait, because we're all designed to wait. Every single design, even the manifester, we're all designed to wait. If we ask the question and we wait and let the feedback loop bring us the response to the question, and then we go, I like this, I'm going to do it, or I don't like that, I'm going to ask a different question, then we engage from a place of fundamental creativity that is not reactive, that is not situational, and that is purely accessing the creative field or the quantum field in a deeply creative, unlimited way. Questions work. We ask questions to interface with our source, with quantum field. Questioning is your most creative power, not telling. And how many sacred texts say basically ask and it is given, not tell and it is given, right? Use your natural tendency to question everything as your creative power. And here's the kicker, and this is hard for the defined head and ajnas. You don't have to answer the question, okay? That would make you crazy. You let the feedback loop bring you the answer. So it shows up as that epiphany, that aha thing, or it shows up as something in your outer reality, or you get a sign, or you have a dream. We are designed, we're in the holodeck, right? Isn't it the holodeck? We're in the creative journey, and it's constantly talking to us. Everything you see, hear, smell, touch, and taste is a reflection of the answers that you're seeking and the level of consciousness and vibrational frequency that you're putting out there. Your outer reality is going to show you what you need to do next, or where you need to go next, or what question you need to be asking next to get to the next level of creativity. So pay attention, tend to your vibration, we'll talk more about that, and then follow your strategy. You will interface with the feedback loop in accordance to your human design type. That's the mechanics of it. So as a manifester, you ask a question and then you create in the way that's right for you as a manifester, and there are a lot of different ways to create as a manifester. As a generator, you ask a question and then you respond to what shows up. As a projector, you ask a question and then you follow your authority, depending on what kind of question you're asking. And if you get that big invitation, you love it, you take it. And if you're a reflector, you ask a question, see what shows up, and then wait your way through it until it feels correct. So here's just a different way of looking at it. You ask a question, the root center, the center that connects us to the earth, is part of what generates the next level of response to whatever shows up in your feedback loop, okay? So we didn't go through the heads of the gates of the head and the ajna, but let me just review them briefly for you. The 64 is called confusion. The 61 is reaching to know the unknowable. The 63 is doubt and suspicion. The 47 is oppression. The 24 is rationalization. The gate 4 is the gate of answers, but they're not always the right answers. They're just the answers you make up in your head. The 17 is the gate of opinions. The 43 is the gate of weird thinking. The gate 11 is ideas and seeking, but not finding. The 62 is practicality, sometimes to a fault. The 23, again, goes back to that whole thing of weird thinking, and the 56 is just telling stories, but they're not necessarily true stories, they're just really creative stories. That's what's up there in your head. That's what you're making decisions with. Doubt, confusion, rationalization, oppression, suspicion, questioning, right? And we're taught, oh, use this part of your brain, use this part of your energy field to make decisions. No wonder most people are struggling for clarity. Your head and your ajna are designed to engage your imagination in possibility thinking. That's the purpose of your head and ajna. It's designed to go, wow, what would happen if? Let me imagine that. It is not designed for certainty, not designed to figure things out, and not designed to use whatever is in that head to start creating things. Let's look at what's in the root center. And let's look at the richness of what's available to us energetically in response to the feedback loop. The gate 53 in the root is the gate of initiation into action. The gate 60 in the root, which engages with the feedback loop, is innovation. The gate 52 is perspective. The gate 19 is intimacy. The gate 39 is activism. The gate 40 is higher will. The gate 58 is joy. The gate 38 is fighting for what's right. And the gate 54 is enlightenment. And it's enlightenment that ultimately involves manifesting dreams into reality. The creative capacity of the root center and using that and understanding that when you are fully grounded. And by the way, if you struggle with grounding, and lots of you with open roots do, Jamie has a great essence for grounding. Great essence for grounding. The root center is the energy that connects us to the earth. And our earth experience, our physical experience and rootedness and groundedness in our earth experience is what creates the response sequence to the feedback loop and ultimately creates a new set of questions. The flow of these energies from the root take us to the energies that create in the chart. Remember, the root goes to the spleen, the sacral, or the solar plexus. So it's either going to create a survival-based instinct, it's going to create an opportunity to take action, or it's going to create an emotional vibration, an abundant vibration, a creative vibration. And it's the root that regulates this. So, sample questions, some things that you can work with. Instead of going, I got to figure out my life purpose. So some sample questions might be, instead of going, I got to figure out my life purpose, the question might be, what do I need to do to be of service in the world? Instead of, why am I so blocked around money? Ask, what needs to be released and healed for me to fully step into abundance? Instead of asking, again, the abundance thing, what do I need to do to create order for me, to create in order for me to sustain my financial foundation? How can I create more love in this situation when you feel like killing your partner? What do I need to do to live my destiny? Your questions, you can write them. I am a big fan of, if you've got questions for the day, I always ask questions in the morning. My question for the morning is, what's the greatest contribution that I can make to the world today? And I'll write it in my journal, and I actually just write the answer. I see what shows up in the flow of my writing. But I like writing. That works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. You can simply ask it with your mind and then see what the feedback loop brings. You can ask the questions, and this is really powerful. Ask the questions before you go to sleep. I actually encourage people, write it on a 3x5 card, stick it under your pillow. And always ask the question and then see what shows up. And then once it shows up, ask more questions, because you're in a constant state of growth and expansion. You don't have to just ask one question and bam, you're done. You can keep asking questions and keep tweaking it all the time. So ask questions and see what shows up.